Welcome back to another episode of Sketchy Watercolor Artist. I'm sketchy because I'm not terribly well trained, but I love sketching. And I think there's a quality in the types of paintings that I like that do appear very sketchy. I think I got really into wondering whether or not I missed out on going further in art education. Because I focused on ceramics in school instead of going into higher level drawing, but I did love to draw. And my drawing, you know, graphite type stuff is not terrible, I don't think. There's definitely a very historically relevant value in draftsmanship, the skill of draftsmanship, getting the actual shapes correct. I apologize for my dog. He's kind of a big bozo. Lay down. Lay down. Shush. Hey, lay down. Shut up. Anyway, this is a painting that I did of a guy I respect. I like learning from things he produces, but if you recognize it, awesome. If you don't, I'm not going to bother saying it. But this painting, I loved the atmospheric quality of it. And I've been taking a stance now on starting my paintings in watercolor only, seeing how far can I get with watercolor before I switch over to gouache to get those light values or what I like about gouache a lot and why I like using it is because I don't have the money or the space to spend on oil. I love to learn to paint in oil. But at this point I would be starting over entirely. Now, other artists that I follow and pay attention to liken gouache very much to oil in kind of how it handles and how you have to think while you're doing it. And the thing I would love about oil is that it stays wet for a long time. So you have a lot of time to think in the process of doing your painting. But gouache somewhat allows you to do that in that you can re-wet and rework an area. I also love watercolor because you can get really, really vibrant colors. But the drawback with watercolor is if you do make a mistake, sometimes you can lift it out, and other times you've fully stained that paper with the pigment, and there's no going back. So it's kind of all or nothing. But the beauty of kind of working both. Now, gouache, you can water down a lot and treat it exactly like watercolor. I do find it's maybe a little less vibrant. However, that's fine. You can work the initial stages of the painting, and I kind of break it down into 3 parts. I'll take my first part and get a general color into the major areas of the painting. So I kind of, in my head, I've drawn out a very basic figure. It doesn't need to be perfect. In some cases where I want the likeness to be really dead on, I'll take the time and make good proportional measurements and try and get the likeness narrowed in. So in the case of, really truly in the case of getting a person's likeness down, you just have to focus in the eyes and nose region, so that T section in the face. The bridge of the nose, the shape of the eyes, the eyebrows, and a little bit of the mouth, but it doesn't take a whole lot to get the brain to recognize a face. However, our brains are also really, really excellent facial recognition machines. So if you want to make a really good likeness, you do have to get that part absolutely correct. And so when I do want to try and improve the realism and the recognition, I do really heavily focus on that. Now, the value in shading in the face, that can depend on lighting. So I don't think your brain cares that much about that, but also the value is where we recognize the form of a face. So somewhere in there, there's a happy medium between sketching a face out in line and getting it correct in color, in the paint. So in paint, it's more value and shape, maybe not even so much color. Whereas if you sketch a face and you can get it pretty accurately in pencil, the outline that is, it's a really cool skill to learn, and it's why I loved getting into painting to begin with. Is taking something that I see as a good likeness in pencil, and then really taking it to that final step of transforming it into color, the way I see it, the way I want to interpret it. But anyway, so getting back to the process of this one, I started out all watercolor with the assumption that I was going to transition to gouache. But I liked where it was going with the watercolor, so I just kept on in watercolor and didn't bother to switch over. I slowly built up in steps each individual shape, each individual part of the total picture. And I found it worked in watercolor. It's definitely not perfect to the picture in terms of color. It's pretty hard to get a perfect color in watercolor. The paint you see when you mix, say, a puddle of a particular wash it's gonna dry somewhat differently from the color you see in the puddle. It is not gonna be, say, the same. So if you have to go back over it, you're never gonna get that same color again. There's just no way. And that's why a lot of professional watercolors will teach that, to do a wash, and that's the kind of a key technique in watercolor. If you want to put a color over a whole section of your painting, you mix up a big puddle of it. Don't mess around with making a little puddle. Then you have to try and match that same color again. You're never going to match it. So I wasn't going for trying to match it perfectly even, because I did kind of have in my mind that I might switch over to gouache and it wouldn't matter. I wanted to lay out the base color for a section in the painting and then switch to gouache, match that color in gouache, and then go back over it. So I could fine tune and move around the values and the colors kind of as I saw fit. But I liked how it ended up, maybe somewhere around here in the video, and just kept going with it and committed to slowly building up the values. Because, see, in watercolor, you really just want to kind of slowly approach your objective. And it takes an element of patience and planning, but the things I liked about this painting are primarily the major shapes as well as the atmospheric quality it presents. And so I kind of saw it emerging in this painting, and so I just pushed into it a little bit. My favorite part really is the background and the ability to pull kind of shapes of a background landscape through a layer of cloud and still see kind of both this cloud covered kind of mountain streamscape through it atmospherically and getting it to work. And I feel like I did. I do like how I feel like it came out very illustrative. Maybe not so much like you would take a photograph of it and have it come out realistic. I feel like the colors might be a little too vibrant, but I still like it. I feel like I could see it in, a book of an illustrated figure. But anyway, taking watercolor, I think the biggest thing is, and what's helped me to improve in it is taking it real slow, planning ahead. And in this case, in this particular painting, taking an opportunity to be really nonchalant. Like, I don't care if I mess up because I'm just going to go over it in gouache. Even though I didn't, I tried to focus on finding values and building up the watercolor along the way, which just happens to be how you're supposed to approach watercolor. So watercolor is light to dark. You take a thing and get a general I can't remember the actual term for it, the base color of the object, right? Build it up light, so get a light version of that color, and then build upon it until the value and form starts to appear in the painting, and then you just gradually increase the definition. But the cool thing about we're making original paintings, we're making it from our own inner eye, right? You're looking for where, see, a photograph is crisp, but as you paint it, you get to pick and choose where you want to create more definition. And there's some rules for it. Say background should be less defined, foreground should be more defined, foreground should be higher in contrast than the rest, higher in warmer tones than the rest. Background should be blued out. So there's lots of rules, and they do help you, but you also make those choices along the way. It's fun to play in, say, a sketchbook where no one has to see it. Except when you're making a video of it, of course. I do apologize greatly for my bonehead of a dog, but maybe it adds an aesthetic quality to the video that I don't know about. Like, share, and subscribe. I've got lots more coming. Thank you.